How does one transform life's toughest challenges into a journey of self-discovery and empowerment? My guest today, Debbie Weiss, embodies the answer to this profound question. Debbie is a best-selling author, coach, speaker, and podcaster. She authored the anticipated memoir, On Second Thought, Maybe I Can. Debbie's words uplift and motivate as she shares her transformational story of overcoming obstacles and living out dreams. As a seasoned life strategist with over 5 decades of experience, she has faced life's daunting challenges head-on. She is also a tenacious entrepreneur juggling a thriving insurance agency and her charming online store, A Sprinkle of Hearts. As the host of the Maybe I Can podcast and an inspirational speaker, Debbie generously shares wisdom on caregiving, overcoming fears, limiting beliefs, and resilience. Driven by a passion for helping others live their best lives, her unwavering spirit and infectious enthusiasm inspire others to pursue dreams despite obstacles. Today, we dive deep into her life journey, discussing topics from caregiving, personal prioritization, to starting life anew after 50, the power of loss and new beginnings, and the essence of empowerment and personal growth. We'll explore her writing journey and the dream she is living now, drawing inspiration and empathy from her and understanding the power of change. Thank you, Debbie, for sharing your experience in caregiving, facing our fears, and chasing dreams. This is my interview with Debbie Weiss. Hi, Debbie. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I had the privilege of reading your book and read it in a day, actually. It was captivating in that way, and hearing your story. You have been through some of life's most challenging, obstacles that we could possibly go through. So hearing you share your story and perspective is something I think we all need. And just as I was saying, those personal stories really connect us, and we can pull out those things that give us that encouragement. So thank you for being here. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Nicole. And thank you for reading the book. And I'm so glad that you enjoyed it and it spoke to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it hard to write, to be that vulnerable and to share, such personal things? I know when we put ourselves out there, it's like, oh, how was that for you?
You know, what's so funny is when I was writing it, even though obviously I knew the end game was that other people were going to read it, that was the reason I was writing it. I don't think that truly hit home for me until I went to record the audiobook. And I was in this little room by myself, but there were two guys, probably in their late 20s, early 30s, outside. I couldn't see them. And I read a chapter that was, I don't know, very, very, very personal.
Yeah.
I finished the chapter and I opened up the door and I looked at the two of them and I thought, oh my goodness, they just heard my inner workings,
Right.
my inner mind. And then I realized, wow, I'm putting this out there for the whole world to see. So
Mm-hmm.
in answer to your question, when I was writing it, no, but now I'm realizing, oh, wow, everyone's going to know
Yep.
not everything about me, but you're going to know me.
Exactly. It is out into the world. Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I'm glad it is. I think there's a lot that, as I was even reading it, some things I identified with, right? We all have our personal story. They're so individual, they're so unique, but there are those common thoughts that we have, or hurdles that we need to overcome, maybe in different ways. And so providing that inspiration, that motivation is healing for a lot of us, to be able to read that and go, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this.
Exactly, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad to hear that because that was one of the things I was concerned about is,
Mm,
of course, not everybody's had the same struggles. And would someone relate whose struggles, were very different?
mm-hmm.
And but I agree with you because I have to put myself as the reader of reading other books or listening to other speakers. And of course, even though I haven't been through their exact journey or
Mm-hmm.
dealt with the challenges that they have, it does evoke something in you that makes you think of your own personal circumstance.
Yeah. And there were different themes throughout that, which we're going to touch on some of those today. And obviously for people, they need to read the book to really deep dive into all of the intricacies of that. But it really is about, and caregivers is who my audience really is we put ourselves on the back burner, right? We don't prioritize our own needs. We put everyone else in front of us. So learning to do that, you talk about, not seeing ourselves as the victim, the struggles that we face, how we can overcome some of that. So that's the lens I think today that we'll talk through are some of those different components of that. And that shows up as we are in middle life. I'm in middle life. I'm in my 40s and I'm realizing I've got different thoughts about that and where life is taking me and those new beginnings, but also the caregiving piece and caring for others and what does that look like after loss or after caregiving or while we're in it. So I'm really thankful that you're able to, give us some insight on that and share your perspective and help us as we kind of identify parts of ourselves within your story. So
Caregiving is definitely a major theme of my life,
oh
for
my
sure.
goodness, it is. Have you found in different conversation with people, I don't know, in reading your book or just in your life, that we as caregivers don't really realize when we're not in it, but just how prevalent it is that there's some component of that almost in everyone's life, but no one really is talking that openly that openly about it now. I think we're getting better, right? There's more awareness around it. But did you find people that were like, "Oh my gosh, that is such a part of my story?"
To tell you the truth, I didn't even realize that there was a name for what I was doing.
Mm.
I think the word caregiver, I think it's becoming more prevalent. Maybe it's because I'm, more attuned to it. But
Mm-hmm.
I always just assumed a caregiver was a professional caregiver,
Yeah.
right? A
Yeah.
nurse, a doctor, somebody like that. I never stopped to think of myself as actually being a caregiver.
Mm.
And I think when I did, it was empowering and it made me realize that, oh, this has a name and I can find other people out there
Yes.
who are in similar situations.
Yes.
And I think just having that name and that community kind of helps to unite us and
Oh,
find each other.
completely. I'm so glad you spoke to that. That is the conversation we're having in this caregiver world, is that a lot of families don't self-identify as a caregiver. We're spouse, daughter, friend, neighbor, and when we have the words to say what we're doing, then we can, to your point, find the community and go, "Oh my goodness, I can find people and connect with them." Or see the resources that are available. Now there's more and more coming out. So it's good to hear your perspective on that you didn't even know there was a name.
No
Yeah.
idea.
So for our listeners that haven't read the book yet, can you briefly, which I know is not brief, they need to read the whole book, but sort of set the stage for why you decided to write the book and your story and what that pivotal moment was in terms of, okay, this needs to be shared and get your message out into the world.
So I became a caregiver at 17. The day after I graduated from high school, my dad, who was only 46 at the time, just turned 46, had a massive stroke and survived. And he lived for 30 years. He was never able to work again. He was partially paralyzed, and my parents were divorced, and I was his caregiver. He never lived with me, but I was the person who was always in charge of him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of where he was living, of getting him resources, food, doctors, whatever he needed. He was just, I was his hotline, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so that was a 30-year journey. That was part of my caregiving journey. And
Wow.
then I have two sons. And when I had my oldest son at 2, he was diagnosed on the autistic
Mm-hmm.
spectrum. And just recently, I had become my husband's caregiver as well when he was diagnosed with a terminal illness, as well as mental illness.
Mm.
And so I've had that broad
Mhm.
spectrum of 40 years or more than 40 years of being a caregiver to three different people, to three different relationships, all
Wow.
very, very different. My aha moment was when I turned 50, which I'm
Mhm.
almost 60, less than 2 months and counting. So
Mhm.
10 years ago,
Yeah.
when I turned 50, the time my kids were 12 and 10, my dad had just passed away a couple years earlier, and my husband was, relatively fine.
Mhm.
And my friend said, "You deserve this. We're going to take you away for a couple of days." And I was afraid to leave my family. And what are they going to do without me? And I'm going to miss them. And they said, "Don't be ridiculous." And we go away. And from the minute that we met at that airport, the laughter started. And I could literally feel the stress just melt away. I thought that I would be worried about my kids. I forgot all about them.
How
And it
healing.
was great. And in that time, and through discussions, through the laughter, we had discussions about our hopes and dreams. And, I had hopes and dreams for my kids, but I thought hopes and dreams for myself as a
Mhm.
person,
Mhm.
not so much, right? And that weekend really made me realize that I had lost myself as a person. And honestly, I don't think I ever knew myself as a person because I became a caregiver at such an early age that my whole life had been all about taking care of others and never taking care of myself. And just like you said about being in your 40s and having a different perspective, that's when it hit me at 50. I don't know how much time I have left. Am I going to get to the end of my life and look back and regret the life that I led? I never regret and will
Mm.
never regret taking care of my loved ones.
Mhm.
But that shouldn't be exclusive, that that's the only thing I'm allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so it was at that time that really was my aha moment that made me say, you know what? It's time. It's time to
Mhm.
do something for you. You deserve it. And that doesn't mean that you don't love or care for your family members.
So true. It's not exclusive. It's not exclusive. I love that you spoke to that. And many people do struggle with that, right? We've got caregiving responsibilities that we have, but we also have our personal ambitions and the life that, dreams that we want to see happen and come to fruition. What advice would you offer other caregivers if they're struggling with figuring those two things out?
So, first of all, I would say that taking care of yourself, which means taking care of your dreams and your hopes and
Mm-hmm.
your physical self, prioritizing yourself, I used to think was so selfish. And I didn't have time for that because, my to do list is miles long and it's
Right.
never done, right? And so I kept thinking someday when I'm done, someday, well, someday never comes. And prioritizing your own self care really does make you a better caregiver for your
Mm-hmm.
loved ones. Because when
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that for 30 something years, I got to tell you, sometimes I was quick to anger, right? I had a short fuse.
Yeah.
I was walking around feeling like a victim, like, why me? Why is this my life? I'm always exhausted. I'm always overwhelmed. It was no way to live. And when I learned, hey, you deserve time for yourself, and I started to do that, then I became more present and calmer when I was with my loved ones. So it's not selfish. It's that same old adage,
Mm-hmm.
which I'm sure everyone's heard and thought of before about putting your oxygen mask on yourself first. And if you
Mm-hmm.
think of it that way, it does make sense.
It truly does. Did you find that you had some initial challenges when you decided to make that change? What did you have to work through or overcome in those moments?
I think every boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say that right off the bat. Boundaries. I never had any. What are boundaries? I
Mm-hmm.
have no idea. These are things that I am in charge of creating. I completely foreign concept to me. And so when those around you are used to having full access all the time. They're the priority. You have to teach them, right? So
Mhm.
it's a process, and it's a process for all of you. But I really got good at saying, okay, Mondays, this is kind of how it started for me. For me, exercise, dancing, dance aerobics, Zumba, that kind of thing
Mhm.
is not only good for my physical self, but it's amazing for myself with my mental health. And so I would say Mondays and Wednesdays from 6 to 7:30, don't plan anything, don't expect me to be there. I am going to class or whatever I was doing. And okay, that's how we started. And the thing with planning your own life, looking at your own dreams, whatever it is, you have to make it happen. So you have to plan. So even if it's not a class, when I was writing my book, and we can get into that later, I scheduled it. And it takes discipline, right? Because it's so easy to make an excuse in your own mind. Oh, they really need me. Oh, it can't wait. Oh, but if I do that, I'd be wasting time. It's a waste of time. Like, you have to be the one to enforce the rule, because certainly nobody else is going to tell you to go do that, right?
I was just gonna
They're going
say,
to tell you just
right.
the opposite. No,
Yeah.
no, don't go.
Yeah. No one will do that for us, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good reminder. You mentioned experiencing the loss of your spouse in the book, and this is such a profound loss for us in our life. How has that really impacted your journey and your perspective?
So at the time that we're recording it, it's almost 8 months ago now
Okay.
that my husband Gary passed away. Hard
Wow.
to believe.
Wow. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Um, yeah, it's really, it's a feeling of loneliness. It's a feeling of I'm no longer part of a partnership that I had for 30 years. And so many people have longer partnerships or shorter partnerships. It doesn't
Mhm.
really matter the amount of
Mhm.
time. But now I have to figure out now what for me, which is different, right? When you're
Mhm.
part of a couple or a team, you're in it together,
Mhm.
and it's what is our future. And now it's what is my future. And
Mhm.
part of it is kind of nice in the sense that, you know, there's no compromising.
Mhm.
I guess
Mhm.
you make the rules, only you make the rules, but then, on the flip side, only you make the rules,
Right.
right? So having this book, having this awakening, this passion or this other entirely different life
Mhm.
than I had 2 years ago is actually making it so much easier for me to get
Mm.
through that, because now each day, instead of going, well, I do still have a full time job,
Mm.
have an insurance
Mm.
agency. Luckily, I have a wonderful team of women who are there, and they really don't need me. And I like my job, my full time job, but it's different than what I'm doing now,
Mhm.
right? Because what I'm doing now, I am so passionate about. And that means that every day when I wake up now, I think to myself, what do I get to do today? Who do I get to talk to today? I
Yeah.
get to talk to Nicole today. I get to talk to her audience. I get to meet a new person. I,
Mhm.
I get to speak to somebody who gets it, who's as passionate as I am.
Mhm.
And it's amazing. If I didn't have that, it would be really difficult. And I did not know, how life just happens for a reason?
Mhm.
My husband was diagnosed with a terminal illness 6 months earlier.
Mm.
And this whole life shift for me started, like I said, probably, well, I could go all the way back to 10 years,
Right.
but really the last 2 years.
Mhm.
It had nothing to do with my husband dying. I didn't know it was going to
Mhm.
happen.
Yeah.
But now I'm in a place where, thank goodness, because it's saving me.
Yeah. The purpose. And it was in motion previously without you knowing how much that you would be able to need to lean on that.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure what you had just shared speaks to that, but did you have to find that you had to recreate some routines or in other ways that are bringing you solace as you're grief never ends, I always say. We have to learn to live with it. For yourself, that you found to be helpful and could maybe encourage other people that are in that same situation?
Well, the first couple months, I noticed that when, everybody would want to take me out and meet for dinner and whatnot, which was very nice. And I enjoyed it when I was out. But when I would come home and it was quiet in my house,
Mm,
that was a lonelier feeling to me than just being home the whole time.
mhm,
Now, that doesn't mean I stopped going out because I didn't. I think, gosh, it really is so, so difficult.
mhm,
For me, I think it just really has been time and really finding things that I never got to do before. Before I was so busy, I didn't have any downtime. I didn't get to read. I love to read. I didn't get to read books that often, right? I didn't get to binge watch shows. I never saw any of
mhm.
these things everyone's talking about.
Right.
So I think the best thing is remembering the things that you love to do and look at it as an opportunity to kind of like re-engage. Again, not everybody's like me, but I'm a joiner and I'm a social
Mhm.
person. So maybe it was, getting back out there and joining, some kind of group that you like. I'm back to going to my Zumba and all of that. I had kind of stopped when my husband was very ill. So, just getting back into life and getting in touch with the things that bring you joy. Because I think, too, as a caregiver, it's part of losing yourself, right? When you lose yourself in that whole caregiving journey and job, you forget who you are. So, take the time to get in touch with yourself and create those things that you can enjoy and look forward to. Grief is always going to be
Yeah.
there, like you
Yeah.
said, and
Yeah.
it hits you. You know the times it's going to hit you, right? If it's
Mhm.
the birthday or the anniversary, like the obvious time, the
Mhm.
holidays, it just smacks you in the face when you least expect it.
Mhm.
So you can't protect yourself from it, and you shouldn't protect yourself from it. It's important to feel it, but that doesn't mean that that's all you have to feel,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You've got to go out and find your joy.
There's this. Do you remember? I can't remember the name of that movie. It's animated, but it's about emotions, and I remember it being this perfect picture of how the emotions can live together, and we can have joy commingled with pain, or joy commingled with grief and sadness. And it was a great visual for me, I think, as we walk through life and hard things happen, where you do start to understand that those will coexist, and that's okay. We don't have to be tied to one emotion or the other at all the time. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. It's funny how we think that, right?
Mhm.
I never
Mhm.
saw the movie, but actually somebody was just telling me about it. It wasn't Up, was it?
No, it wasn't. I wish I could
Someone
remember
just
the
told me.
name.
Yeah.
It was like these different emotions were little characters. Okay, I'm gonna have to try to remember that.
Okay.
I am gonna have to try. Was there a moment that stood out for you where you decided to stop viewing yourself as victim and lean into the phrase that you talk about and the title of your book, Maybe I Can, that gave you this movement towards more empowerment and claiming who you are and experiencing new things?
It was a slow progression.
Mm,
After I came back from that 50th birthday trip, I went back to Weight Watchers for the millionth time in my life.
mm,
And when I went back this time or that time, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to do things a little bit differently because I've been doing it the other way for 50 years and it really hasn't worked. So let's try something different. And instead of having that perfection mindset,
mm,
it's all or nothing, I'm good, I'm
mhm,
bad, I'm on, I'm
mhm,
off. I started with small goals. I'm just going to go to a Weight Watchers meeting every week.
mm,
I'm not going to track what I eat. It doesn't matter if I lose weight. And I did that until I got good at that and consistent. And then I added another small piece and another small piece. And over many years, nothing happened quickly. I lost about 90 pounds, never hit my goal and still haven't, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I, through that experience, realized, look what happened when you just shifted the way you thought. Weight
Mm-hmm.
Watchers didn't change. Yeah, maybe their programs changed a tiny little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't change. The only thing that changed was how I approached it.
Mm-hmm.
And once that light kind of dawned on me, that was really the catalyst to say, hey, wait a second. All those things I said I couldn't do before, what happens if I start looking at it a little bit differently? It seemed to work with the Weight Watchers, so let me try it somewhere else and somewhere else and somewhere else. And that was really the catalyst, but it was slow over years, quite honestly.
That change takes time.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
It
But
does.
it sounds so easy, but the
Mm-hmm.
realization, the thought process, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that is why the name of my book is On Second Thought, Maybe I Can.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me, when any new idea like, oh, I can try blah blah blah, or somebody says wanna, I don't know, go skiing that I never did before,
Mm-hmm.
my first thought is can't do that, right? And I'm telling myself all the reasons, and then I just stop. It's like, nope, no, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just pause for a second, and why do we do that? Or at least, why did I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I always convince myself? Well, because I
Mm-hmm.
was afraid, right? I never
Mm-hmm.
did it before. What if I'm not good? Like
Mm-hmm.
I have every little thing that could possibly happen under the sun running through my head in
Mm-hmm.
10 seconds. How about the other side?
Yeah.
How can we never look at the other side? Well, why not? Maybe you can.
Mm-hmm.
Think about all the things in your life. For me, a lot of them I was forced to do. Did I ever
Mm-hmm.
think that I was going to be a caregiver? Did I ever know that I would be able to learn all the difference about Medicaid and Medicare and private disability? And, at 18 years old, of course not. But I did it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that everyone has a list of all those things that they didn't think they could do,
Mm-hmm.
but they did.
Mm-hmm.
So why can't I draw on those experiences instead of all that fear and what if this and what if
Mm-hmm.
this and what if this? And if you just pause a second
Mm-hmm.
after the no, 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 I can't, then maybe you can convince yourself that maybe you can.
It's almost like we have to look back and recognize. You just said, okay, who knew that I would know all of these things at 18 years old or 17 years old? And to celebrate all that we've learned and how far we've come, that we never dreamed that we would have to, acquire all that new knowledge that we weren't expecting, right? That we didn't set out to learn.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I stole it from someone else and I can't remember what they called it, but I made a maybe I can list. It's
Mm-hmm.
in my phone, in my notes section. And every time that I really tell myself, even after pausing, I can't do that, I go back and I look at all the things that I did that I thought I could never do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
And
a
then
really good
that's that,
idea.
you know?
I'm
You
I'm
can't,
gonna do that.
it's
That's a
a great
really good
idea.
idea.
It
Yeah.
really, really is. You got to
Mm-hmm.
remember it's there
Mm-hmm.
and you have to refer to it. But just writing it, like I remember when I first started writing, I'm thinking, oh, what did I really do? Right?
Mm.
Oh, this. Oh, I guess this is. Oh, yeah, yeah. And then all of a sudden the floodgates start opening up and
Yeah.
you realize, oh my goodness, just putting it down on paper really gives you an appreciation for, like you said, how far
Mm-hmm.
I've come, how much I've overcome that I never thought that I
Mm-hmm.
could before.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at those experiences, I think most of us would say, looking back on those struggles, I wouldn't change it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that made us the people we are today. It gave us so much knowledge, so much strength that we wouldn't have had
Mm-hmm.
to get us to, where we sit right now.
Mm-hmm. I know. Why do we do that? We downplay our role in life and all the things that we've done, and we need to be reminded and encouraged to not do that. Just the importance of that. Yeah.
Absolutely. We got to give ourselves credit.
We
We deserve
do.
it.
We do. Do you think some of it is that societal pressure of when we've reached certain ages, okay, so life after 50, or as we get a little bit older, that we should have done this by this age, or, those kind of benchmarks. How do you navigate those pressures or give other people insight into how we kind of get away from that a little bit?
I've really been down. I have in the past really been down on myself about that.
Mhm.
In my 50s, I'm watching my friends. Well, they're having grandchildren. I wasn't able to, as it says in my book, I had infertility struggles. So I did not have my children until I was closer to 40. So I'm an older mom when my friends are having grandchildren. And I'm watching them and I'm watching them talk about retirement and, they're able to travel and do all these things. And my life does not look like it's supposed to at 50s or in my 50s.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any money. I don't have a prospect of being able to retire anytime soon. I'm not able to just get up and travel because one, the money, two, my caregiving situation, right? So that was making me feel pretty down on myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing that was playing into that victim mentality. Oh, at 50, I should be here, but I'm not. So that makes me less than.
Mm.
That makes me a failure. You know what? Who made these rules?
Yep.
I am 60, almost 60. I am almost 60, and my life is really just starting. And honestly, that is honestly how I view it. I needed to step through all of those other things to get me where I am today. And I don't want to retire. I would like to retire from the insurance business. I'm not going to lie. But from this, I don't ever want to retire. I never will retire. I know that for a fact. I will never retire. I might want to slow down
Right.
and do things a little differently, but I don't want to retire if it's helping other people.
Yeah, the
Because
passion
that's what I was
behind
put here for. That's what I actually recently realized.
it.
You know what? That has always been my purpose. It's been to help other people. And for so long, I was doing it as a caregiver, and I'll continue to do it as a caregiver, right? For my kids. My mom is in her 80s. I will, of course, be a caregiver. But I want to help other people who are feeling like I was, to let them know they deserve and they need to have a life of their own that they love for themselves.
Yeah. Well, you answered my next question, which
Oh,
is you're living the life of your dreams. And
I
what does
am.
that look like for you? Which is, this is it, right? You've
This is it.
identified that purpose and being able to help other people.
When I realized, so one of the things, and you alluded to it before, was a quote in my book that I came across. I thought maybe I thought it, and I was going to all of a sudden have this great quote that I made up, but I didn't make it up. It turns out it was Glinda the Good Witch from The Wizard of Oz who said, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself."
Wow.
And I'd heard that quote how many times, right? Have we seen The Wizard of Oz? And you've heard that, and it never resonated with me. And throughout this journey, when that quote popped into my head, and then I Googled and said, oh, it was Glinda, not me. And I thought to myself, oh, that's what it means, right? I had only thought about it in the context of the movie. It meant, Dorothy, all you had to do was tap your heels 3 times and you're going to go home. But no, it is so much more than that. I thought my life, this was my destiny, this caregiving journey, this giving my life to everyone else, thinking that I was a victim of just my circumstances. This is my destiny, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I can. And that's why that quote resonated with me. The whole time I had the power, I just had no idea. I had no idea. And now that I've discovered it, that's my power.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's my power. That's my purpose, to let other people, I want to shout it from the rooftops. And really that's what inspired me to write the book. And now I'm going out and speaking because I want to get to as many people as I can to let them know, there must be others like me out there who thought like I, used to. And I want to shake everyone and say, no, There's a better way.
There is a better
Come with
way.
me.
And how perfect is that encouragement for people that might feel trapped in their circumstances and defined by their struggle? I think for a lot of caregivers, I do hear that sentiment of, I feel really trapped, I feel really stuck. Um, so being able to move into a different way of being.
And you have to be open because I know in years past, if I was listening to that conversation, I'd think,
Mm-hmm.
oh, sure, they say that, but look at my situation.
Mm-hmm.
My situation's so much harder than their situation, right? I was always looking for an excuse, a reason why that didn't apply to me.
Mm-hmm.
There are no excuses. There really are not. There are only, something that I saw um, from Jack Canfield that is a formula says E plus R equals O, which means the event or the circumstance
Mm-hmm.
plus our reaction equals the outcome. So you might not be able to change the event or your circumstance, but you can always change your response. And if you think about how you respond, of course the outcome is different because there's other people who have worse circumstances than you and they reacted differently and
Mm-hmm.
look at the life that they're living.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is a math girl at heart, which I am. Just like
Right.
a formula
The
really
equation, yeah.
resonates with me. Just like you
Mm-hmm.
said about the visuals with the emotions, this is
Mm-hmm.
for me, like I can picture E plus R equals O. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can't change that, my father had a stroke and my
Mm-hmm.
husband, and I can't change any of those things,
Mm-hmm.
but I can change how I react to them. And
Mm-hmm.
when I do that, then my outcome changes.
Yeah, completely. So you're inspiring other people. Who or what was your source of that inspiration and strength?
So I don't think I have any one person, any one
Mm-hmm.
famous person, nothing like that. I think it's my younger self.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's who it is. It's my younger self
Yeah.
that I want to get to people. I don't want to say that this is going to, I have to come up with a better word. Not that I wasted my
Mm-hmm.
life, because I didn't waste my life, but I wasted time for such a long time living the way I was with my outlook that I want other people to have the luxury of learning the secret earlier.
Earlier. Yeah.
So I think that is who is my
Mm-hmm.
inspiration and
Mm-hmm.
will continue to be.
Mm-hmm. We can learn so much from where we've been and how we've grown. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now that when you talked earlier, okay, you put your deepest story out into the world with your memoir, what is next for you? Where can we learn more about what you're up to? Where can people connect with you and find your work and all of that?
So thank you. Yes. So what's next for me? I don't know. I actually have been, boy, I just launched this book. I'm like, oh, maybe I can write another book. Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
can, right? I didn't even mean to say that, but
I
maybe
love
I can.
it.
So I'm thinking
Yep.
about that.
Yep.
But right now, booking speaking engagements all around the country, trying to, like I said earlier, get out there and inspire and motivate as many people as I can. And anybody can find me on my website, which is debbier.weiss.com. The R is pivotal, otherwise you won't find me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. We'll see. Things are in the works, and I decided I don't have any preconceived notions,
Mm-hmm.
because if you had told me, I don't know, a year ago that this is what I would be doing and that I actually had written and published a book, I wouldn't have believed it. So I'm really just trying to connect with my intuition
Mm-hmm.
and listen to life's little whispers and pay attention to what my next moves are.
Yeah, being open to it all and not
Mhm.
limiting anything.
That's right.
Not limiting anything. Well, thank you so much. I enjoyed our conversation today. It was fun to finally meet with you. And now I hope we'll stay in touch and I can hear about all the things that you are going to be doing in the world. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Nicole. It was wonderful to chat with you and look into your beautiful eyes. My
Oh,
goodness, you are
thank
just
you.
such a pretty thing.
Oh, thank you. Likewise. guys. My listeners can't see. We have these awesome
I
glasses
know.
on.
Thank goodness
They're
today
so
I
great.
didn't want to be seen today. I double checked, make sure.
Oh my gosh. Yep.
No
No video.
video.
No video. No, but I love your glasses. They're great.
Thank
They're
you.
so good. Oh, this was fun. Thank you. Thank you for listening today. If you enjoyed our episode, please subscribe and give us 5 stars. In all honesty, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening to our episode.